She signed her divorce papers with shaking hands while snow buried the driveway outside the mansion. Her husband wouldn't look at her. His mother smiled as if she had just won. They believed they were throwing away a useless woman on Christmas Eve. What they didn't know was that she wasn't losing a marriage. She was ending a test. Within days, the people who humiliated her would sit across a glass table begging for mercy from the very woman they had discarded. Stay until the end, because this is not a story about revenge. It's about what happens when someone finally remembers who they are and stops asking for permission to matter. It began on Christmas Eve in Aspen, when the snow fell so heavily it swallowed sound itself. Inside Stonebridge Manor, everything glittered. Crystal glasses, polished silver, a towering tree heavy with ornaments that cost more than most people's cars. The smell of roasted goose filled the air, rich and warm, clinging to the walls like a promise that never quite belonged to Emily Carter. Emily stood at the far end of the dining table with her hands folded, her fingers raw from hours of cooking. Her gray dress was simple, almost invisible against the luxury surrounding her. She had chosen it deliberately. Simple clothes invited less attention. Less attention meant fewer insults, or so she had learned. Across from her sat Margaret Carter, her mother-in-law, perfectly composed, diamonds flashing each time she lifted her glass. To Margaret, Christmas was not about warmth or family. It was a performance, and Emily was the prop she despised most. Daniel Carter sat beside his mother, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes fixed on his plate. Emily searched his face for something, a glance, a signal, a reminder that the man who once held her hand in a small coffee shop in Seattle still existed. She found nothing. "Sit down," Margaret said without looking at her. "You're hovering like staff." Emily obeyed. 3 years earlier, she had married Daniel believing she had found love stripped of status and expectation. She had never told him who her father was. She wanted a life where money did not define affection, where she could be chosen simply because she existed. Tonight, she understood how naive that dream had been. "The goose is dry," Lauren Carter announced suddenly, dropping her fork with theatrical disappointment. "It rested exactly 10 minutes, Emily said softly. "It should be moist." "Don't contradict my daughter," Margaret snapped. "If she says it's dry, it's dry." Emily turned instinctively to Daniel. "Is it dry?" For a heartbeat, she thought he might defend her. "It's a little overdone," he said quietly. The words hit harder than any insult Margaret had ever thrown. Emily felt something inside her chest fracture, not loudly but completely. Margaret dabbed her lips with a linen napkin and smiled. "Well, since we're all being honest tonight." She reached beneath her chair and pulled out a black leather folder, sleek and deliberate. She slid it across the table until it stopped inches from Emily's plate, knocking over a crystal salt shaker. "Merry Christmas," Margaret said. "Open it." Emily's hands trembled as she did. Petition for dissolution of marriage. She stared at the words as though they belonged to another language. "Divorce?" she whispered. Daniel finally looked up. His eyes were red, but his voice was flat. "It's for the best. We're from different worlds." Different worlds. Emily stood so abruptly her chair scraped across the marble floor. "I scrubbed this house. I cooked every meal. I defended you when your mother called me trash. I did it because I loved you. And that was your mistake," Margaret said calmly. "Love doesn't pay bills. You bring nothing to this family, no money, no pedigree, no value." Lauren laughed. "We have maids for what you do." Margaret leaned forward, her voice sharpening. "Daniel has an opportunity now, a proper match. The daughter of a Texas oil magnate, someone with money." Emily felt the room spin. "You're trading me," she said, "like an old appliance." "We're upgrading," Margaret replied. "Sign the papers. We're being generous. $10,000. The number was laughable. It was less than Margaret spent on handbags in a month. Emily looked at Daniel one last time. "Tell me you want this. Tell me to my face." He swallowed. "Just sign it. Please, don't make a scene." Something broke then, not into pieces, into clarity. Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out a cheap blue pen, the one she used for grocery lists. She signed her name with a steady hand and pushed the papers back. Margaret smirked. "The check?" Emily picked it up, ripped it in half, then again. She let the pieces fall onto the table. "You're going to need it more than I will," she said quietly. Margaret stood furious. "Get out of my house." Emily did not go upstairs. She did not take a coat. She walked straight through the front doors and into the blizzard. "You'll be back begging in 5 minutes," Lauren called after her. Emily walked down the long driveway, snow biting into her skin, shoes soaked, breath shaking. By the time she reached the iron gates, she was shivering violently. Then headlights cut through the dark. 3 black SUVs rolled to a stop. The lead car was a Rolls-Royce. A man stepped out holding an umbrella, shielding her instantly from the storm. "Miss Sterling," he said softly, "we've been waiting." Emily looked back once at Stonebridge Manor glowing on the hill. "Take me home," she said. "I'm done pretending." Inside the car, warmth wrapped around her. A phone was placed in her hand. "Emily," her father's voice cracked. "Did they hurt you?" "It's over," she said. "I'm free." There was a pause. "The meeting with Carter Logistics is January 2nd. I can cancel it." "No," Emily said, staring at her reflection in the dark window. "Let it happen. I want to attend personally." The snow swallowed the road behind them as the convoy disappeared into the night. And inside Stonebridge Manor, the Carters raised their glasses in celebration, unaware that they had just signed their own downfall. If you were Emily, would you have walked away without looking back, yes or no? The private jet lifted off just before dawn, slicing through the storm that still clung to Aspen. Inside the cabin, the world was quiet in a way Emily Carter had not known for 3 years. No clinking dishes, no sharp voices, no footsteps she had to anticipate before they turned into criticism. Only silence and warmth. She sat back in the cream leather seat, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she barely tasted. Across from her, Richard Sterling watched her with a gaze that held both fury and restraint, the kind of fury that did not explode but waited. "You lost weight," he said finally. Emily smiled faintly. "I cooked enough food for 10 people every night. I just stopped eating by the time I was allowed to sit down." Something in Richard's jaw tightened. He said nothing else, but he reached across the small table and placed his hand over hers. The gesture was steady, protective, real. When the plane landed in New York, Emily did not go home to rest. She went straight to Sterling Tower. The building rose over Manhattan like a statement carved into glass and steel. She had grown up running through its halls, hiding behind conference room doors while executives argued numbers she did not yet understand. She had sworn she would never belong to this world. Now it waited for her with its doors open. The next 72 hours passed in a blur that felt unreal. Lawyers, analysts, accountants, stylists. Every person moved quickly, efficiently, as if the entire city had been holding its breath for her return. They showed her numbers first. Carter Logistics was collapsing. Years of debt masked by reputation. Loans stacked on loans. Safety reports falsified. Maintenance skipped to fund appearances. Stonebridge Manor was mortgaged to its foundation. The company was days from foreclosure. "They are expecting a $40 million injection," one analyst said. "They believe Sterling Acquisitions will take 49%. Emily nodded slowly. "They are wrong." She slept only 4 hours that night, not because she could not rest, but because clarity had replaced exhaustion. Every insult replayed itself in her mind with new context. Every moment she had been told she was worthless now carried weight. On the third day, she stood in front of the mirror as a stylist adjusted the sleeve of her suit. Navy blue, sharp lines, clean, not extravagant. Authority did not need decoration. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. Her face looked different. Not because of makeup, but because something fragile had finally left her eyes. Alfred appeared at the door. "The Carters have confirmed attendance. They believe your father will be present." "He will not," Emily said calmly. "I will." Aspen greeted them with sunlight this time. The mountains looked indifferent. Stonebridge Manor sat exactly where it always had, dark and quiet against the snow. Emily did not look at it as the car passed. The morning of the meeting, the Carters arrived early. Margaret Carter swept into the conference center wearing a vintage suit that smelled faintly of desperation masked by perfume. Lauren followed, scrolling on her phone, bored and irritated by the cold. Daniel walked behind them carrying a leather portfolio heavy with lies. Margaret's confidence filled the room as if it were armor. "This is a formality," she whispered. "Once the papers are signed, everything changes." They sat. They waited. At 10:15, the doors opened. 6 men entered first. Lawyers, analysts. They took their seats without acknowledging the Carters. Then Alfred stepped forward. The CEO of Sterling Acquisitions. Emily walked in. Her heels echoed once, twice. The sound was precise, controlled. Daniel's portfolio slipped from his hands and hit the floor. Lauren froze mid-motion. Margaret stood halfway out of her chair, her smile collapsing into confusion. Emily took the seat at the head of the table. "I am the CEO," she said. The silence that followed felt physical, like pressure. Margaret laughed sharply. "This is a joke. Security." Emily did not blink. "Arthur Sterling is my father. I am Emily Sterling." Daniel stared at her as if the room were tilting. "Emily, what is this?" "This," she said, sliding a folder across the table, "is due diligence." The lawyers moved with synchronized precision. Documents spread across the glass. Numbers highlighted in red. Violations listed cleanly and without emotion. "You are not insolvent," Emily continued. "You are negligent. Your warehouses violate federal safety standards. Your fleet should not be on the road. You falsified reports to secure loans." Margaret slammed her hand on the table. "You deceived us. You lived in our house under false pretenses." "I lived in your house," Emily replied, her voice steady, "as your unpaid labor. I cooked, I cleaned, I endured your insults. If there was deception, it was yours." She paused, then continued. "As of this morning, Sterling Acquisitions purchased your debt. We own the mortgages. We own the loans. We own the leverage." Lauren's voice shook. "You can't do this." "I can," Emily said. "And I am." She stood. "There is one option, full acquisition. You lose control. You walk away with nothing. Daniel will remain employed." Daniel looked up, desperate. "I will do anything." Emily met his gaze. "You will work. Entry level. Night shift. You will earn what you once dismissed." Margaret screamed. Lauren cried. None of it mattered. Emily walked out without another word. Outside, the air was cold and clean. The mountains watched as they always had. 6 months later, Daniel worked nights in a warehouse he barely recognized. His hands were blistered. His back ached. His life had been reduced to honest effort. One afternoon, the noise stopped. Emily walked through the aisle wearing a hard hat and a blazer. She laughed with a manager. She looked healthy, grounded. Daniel waited for humiliation. It never came. She nodded once. Acknowledgement. Nothing more. "Bonuses approved," Emily said. "They've earned it." Cheers rose. Daniel bent back to work. That night, Emily stood on her terrace overlooking Central Park. The city glowed beneath her. She had not taken revenge. She had reclaimed herself. And somewhere in Aspen, a house sat dark and empty, stripped of illusion. Do you believe Emily was right to face them instead of disappearing forever? Yes or no? Winter returned to New York softly that year, not with storms, but with clear mornings and pale sunlight slipping between buildings. From the top floor of Sterling Tower, Emily Sterling watched the city wake up, coffee cooling in her hands. 1 year ago, she had stood in the snow outside Stonebridge Manor, with nothing but a thin dress and a broken marriage. Now the glass beneath her feet reflected a woman who finally stood on solid ground. Success had come quickly, but not carelessly. Under Emily's leadership, Sterling Acquisitions rebuilt what had been rotten instead of hiding it. Warehouses were upgraded, drivers were trained and paid fairly, safety reports were no longer suggestions but law. Profits returned, steady and clean, but what mattered more to her was something no spreadsheet could capture. People stopped being afraid to speak. That morning, Alfred placed a folder on her desk. Inside was the final report on the Carter assets. Everything had been liquidated properly. Employees had been retained. Communities dependent on the logistics hubs had stabilized. And Stonebridge Manor was gone, not destroyed, not turned into a trophy. Sold. Quietly. The money had been redirected into a worker housing initiative in Colorado. Emily had signed the approval herself without ceremony. She did not need revenge anymore. Later that day, she visited the warehouse again, this time without executives trailing behind her. She wore jeans, a sweater, and steel-toed boots, just like everyone else. Conversations paused when she walked in, then resumed. Respect no longer looked like silence. It sounded like ease. Daniel was stacking pallets near the far wall. He moved more slowly now, his posture shaped by months of honest labor. When he noticed her, he froze, then nodded, the same nod she had once given him. He did not approach. He did not apologize again. He had learned when words were no longer his currency. Emily walked past him and stopped beside a young woman struggling with a scanner. She helped her reset it, laughed when it finally worked. Then she turned back toward the exit. Daniel watched her go, not with longing but with understanding. For the first time, he knew what he had lost, and he knew it was not coming back. That night, Emily hosted a small gathering at her apartment. Not investors, not board members, friends, people who had known her before the fall and stayed silent during the climb. Her father stood near the window, listening more than speaking, pride etched deep into his expression. "You didn't just survive," he said quietly when they found a moment alone. "You chose yourself." Emily smiled. "I finally understood that choosing myself didn't mean becoming cruel. It meant becoming honest." Richard nodded. "That's power." As the evening ended, Emily stepped onto the balcony once more. The city lights stretched endlessly, each one a story, a struggle, a second chance. She thought of the woman she had been in that kitchen in Aspen, the woman who believed endurance was love. She did not despise her. She honored her. That woman had endured so this one could exist. Weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. The handwriting was uneven. It was from Margaret Carter. The letter did not ask for money. It did not ask for forgiveness. It spoke of small things. A rented apartment, a job that did not require titles, a daughter who no longer spoke to her, and a realization that control had felt like strength until it vanished. Emily read the letter once, then placed it in a drawer. She did not reply. Some lessons needed silence to settle. Spring came early that year. On a Saturday morning, Emily walked through Central Park, coat open, sunlight warming her face. She passed families, runners, tourists taking photos. Life moved around her without noticing who she was. She liked it that way. She stopped near the lake and watched the water ripple. For a brief moment, the past tried to return. The dinner table, the papers, the snow. Then it faded, because she was no longer standing still. Emily returned to work on Monday with a new project proposal. A foundation, quietly funded, focused on people who had walked away from abusive environments with nothing. Not just women, anyone who had been made small and told it was love. When asked why, she answered simply, "No one should have to lose themselves to earn belonging." On the anniversary of her divorce, Emily did not mark the date publicly. No statements, no interviews. She spent the evening with friends, cooking together, laughing when the food burned slightly, ordering pizza without apology. Later alone, she looked at the city one last time before sleep. She had not won by destroying others. She had won by refusing to disappear. If this story moved you, how do you feel about Emily's choice to respond with strength instead of cruelty? What do you think you would have done in her place? If you enjoyed this story, please comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell next to the subscribe button so you never miss our latest stories. Tell us which country you are watching from and share this story with someone who might need it today.